It's not the footwork. It's not the mechanics. It's not chemistry. It's the hair. It's gotta be the hair. And it goes like this. Put me in the game, I'm ready. I'll leave the team sure and steady with the hair like Jordan. I've got the hair like Jordan. I've got the hair like Jordan. Skull cap so much sweat don't drip down. Hair flowing as I throw touchdowns with the hair like Jordan. I've got the hair like Jordan. I've got the hair like Jordan.
Hello Bulls fans, welcome to week 5 of Last Bull In, where UB this week goes against Western Michigan University. On our agenda tonight, the first thing we'll discuss is we're going to recap the Eastern Michigan win. We're going to do Around the MAC to look at future Buffalo foes and how the MAC is shaping up. We'll do a Western Michigan University guest blogger so we can learn about this Bronco season. We'll do a Bulls versus Western Michigan matchup from our side and the keys to the games. We're going to give you our Bruwpeg predictions. And last but not least, what you're all waiting for is the shout-outs. And let's begin. Well, let's recap last week's great victory over Eastern Michigan University. So first down, Eastern Michigan 17, UB 24. How did UB get those first downs? Pretty even attack. Actually, an actual great even attack. 11 rushing, 11 passing, 2 penalties. We rushed for 228 versus Eastern Michigan's 147, had the same average per rush. Net passing, Buffalo 224 versus 182 for EMU. We're also looking at a 9.3 average pass attempt. Average per completion was 4.9. Passing touchdowns, 1 for each. And look at the total offense. 452 yards versus EMU's 329. We ran 13 more plays, and we gained them by 0.7 of a yard more. Didn't lose any fumbles. That's great. In our penalties, but we got some penalties, and we also had some issues regarding some of the guys getting to a little bit of a fight. So we had 8 penalties for 90 yards. Let's look at the individual leaders versus the UB versus Eastern Michigan game. Now, Brandon Oliver, 25 carries, net 150, 2 TDs with a gorgeous long 60-yard run where, boy, did a great job on that safety trying to step up here. And for this effort, Brandon Oliver was the MAC Offensive Player of the East. Congratulations. So it's the second week in a row where UB put a player. Great job, Brandon Oliver. Passing, again, UB, Joe Licata, 15-22, 224 yards in the air, 1 TD at a long 40 yards, wasn't sacked. Did a great job. Again, another great week with not being sacked, not turning the ball over, no interceptions, played a very smart game. And we had Newts and Russell both had 4 catches, but look at what Newts did, 94 yards total. It is nice to see Brandon catching the ball, Devin, and Fred Lee chipping in. So look at right there, got a great mix with Newts, Oliver, Campbell, Lee, Weiser, Red, and Dunmore. Nice to be able to see to spread that ball all across the field.
We had a second UB Athlete of the Football Team win award besides Brandon Oliver this week. Devin Campbell this week won the Kickoff Return of the Week by the College Football Performance Awards. Devin, after a penalty and it was re-kicked, Devin went all the way to the house, not touched. Great block by Whitney, a great touchdown, and really broke the back of EMU. Congratulations, Devin Campbell, on winning this award. On the defensive side of the ball, you had Blake Bean as the leader with 3 solo, 4 assisted, 7 total tackles, and obviously to keep a watch. So Mac had a half of a tackle for a loss and a half of a sack. Great job, UB defense.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the live edition of Last Bull In. This is week 6, where our UB Bulls are going against another directional Michigan college, going against Western Michigan University. Okay, shifting gears. Guys, let's get something a little bit positive here. Listen, I'm not sure what to do with myself. So for the last 4 years, I've been a miserable prick and didn't know what to do, what to happen, and just not been a happy guy regarding UB football and used to a loss. And now here, all of a sudden, we're on a roll. We could be bowl eligible. We should win the next 2-3 games. Interesting. So let's circle back. I'll tell you what, as a Bulls fan, a wonderful game to watch. So, Tim, why don't you start? Tell me, what did you like about the EMU game? Why did Buffalo win this game? and just your general thoughts about that game. And nice, Tim.
You
By the
know,
way, nice haircut.
oh, thank you. I know I don't have to wear a hat to cover my ratty hair anymore. Um, the one thing that struck me after the Stony Brook near disaster, the one thing that really cheesed me off is just how flat the players were. And I think, yeah, the schemes have been better defensively, and I'm kind of buying into Conrad's theory of vanilla coaching through the out-of-conference slate so that, our MAC games wouldn't be as predictable. Um, but it's the player intensity he's picked up, and I don't know if it's the coaches that finally got the players to tune in or the players have just decided to do it themselves, but they seem a lot more, zoned in for each game. And that to me is a huge difference because it's like we say, the talent's there to win these games for Buffalo. The question is, can we put it all together? And, the Stony Brook game is a prime example of players just going through the motions in all phases. And ever since then, I don't think I've seen too many examples on the field where guys are mailing it in. Guys are running down the plays. Guys are emotional on the sidelines. They seem in tune as a team, and it's something we really haven't seen since that run in 2008. Even in 2009 when Gill was coaching, the team seemed kind of flat. So it's nice to watch the blowouts, but it's really nice to watch the kids enjoy it from beginning to end.
Great point, and that's something that Chevy Hubby said earlier this week, that it was great to see the solidarity. It's great to hear the enthusiasm. I remember the last Temple game at Amherst where their bench was jumping up and down and screaming, and they were louder than the rest of the whole stadium. So it's great to see UB players having a good time, smiling and playing hard for each other. Conrad, tell me about your thoughts about the EMU. What's your takeaway on this victory?
Yeah, I mean, my big takeaway is the takeaways. The defense that we wanted is kind of materializing. The defense we saw in Ohio State, it was not there in Baylor. It was not there. Actually, they did play really well against Stony Brook, but it was in that soft manner where it seemed like Stony Brook could do what they wanted. And it was more of a feeling that Stony Brook didn't execute as well as they could have. But I think the last 2 weeks, UB has really imposed their will, holding EMU to 14 points, and I think UConn to 13. And really, in regulation, they held Stony Brook to 10. So you're looking at 37 points allowed in 12 quarters in the last 3 games. So that's really good for the defense, and it's something that we don't see that often. Even in the Gill years, it was shootouts. We haven't seen the defense really clamp down like we have in the last 3 weeks. I posted on one of my posts that we have 16 sacks this year, which is 2 less than what we had at this time last year with Steven Means. So even though we lost Means, our sack production is still there, and we have a lot more turnovers. We have more turnovers we've taken away the ball more than we did in 2008. We had that amazing takeaway defense. And if you remember last year, it took forever for us to get an interception. We only had 2 interceptions after 5 games. So I think that's a big part. I think that's something where a guy like me I'm a defensive guy, and I relate to that 2008 team, and that's one of the things that really is a trademark of Buffalo defense, taking the ball away and being real physical. And then the last thing that Tim kind of pointed on was that, Khalil Mack is disappointing people around the nation. He's disappointing. He's dropping on Defensive Player of the Year boards, on Hustle Belt, and people are wondering what's going on with him. I'm loving the role he's playing. If you're going to dedicate 2 or 3 guys to Khalil Mack, then Adam Redden, Colby Way, Bo Bachel, who had the forced fumble, Stockman, Gilbo, everyone that's stepping up on defense. If you're not going to throw the knob to Johnson, Courtney Lester's going to intercept the ball from you. So it's been basically what we wanted was that 10 guys getting favorable matchups because one guy is going to swallow up the attention. And if you want to take that away from Mac, he will go ahead and sack you 4 times. So it's working out really well, and our schedule's working where we won't really see an offensive threat to worry about until Dree Archer comes to town, or we go to to Kent, and so it might be a really magical season for the defense.
Conrad, really, defense magical. Wow, this is great to hear. Wow, you've turned the corner, my young man. But it was a wonderful victory. It's nice to be able to. Um, I travel a lot for work, people know, so I missed the first half. So I came home and turned the TV on. We went to a pumpkin festival, or I forgot what, something, family time. And nervous. I was nervous. And when I came home, I turned the TV on, and of course, I was like, you know what? Let me wait because I've got this. I can go back and look. And I had to saw this. When I came in, it was a blowout, and that is something that we haven't seen in many, many years. And I tell you what, it felt very good, and it was nice to see UB's beating a team that they should beat, and that's wonderful to see that. So, Tim, another point on that, Tim?
Yeah, I don't think it's a long time, Dave. I think we can go to ever here. But I think it was no. I mean, no, seriously,
Good point. No, you're right. You're right.
Last time we put up 40 points in back-to-back games was, thank you, I think it was Conrad for correcting the Buffalo News, 2008. But those were tight games. Those were overtime games. I don't ever remember blowing two teams in a row out like this. I can't. I know I have not been a fan as long as some of you guys. I was more of an NFL fan until 6-7 years ago. But yeah, I don't ever remember UB just owning two games like this back to back before.
I can't remember. I can only remember them owning 3 games since I started watching UB. I think way back when Central Florida was in our league, we blew them out in Buffalo in like 2005. I remember beating Temple really badly in Philadelphia in like 2007, and I know we blew Akron away in 2011. But other than that, I can't really think of too many games. The whole Gill era was heart attack, close games, exciting, but you never really knew. If we had a 21-point lead or we're down 21, we're still in the game, but we never put it away like we have this year.
Well, UTEP when Buffalo played UTEP when Gill was there. And then we had Gardner Webb, and I mean that's another subject. But it's great to see a win. Now, what we'd like to do is obviously listen. Buffalo's in the meat of the MAC schedule. This is the time where really wins count. So we kind of shrugged off the Ohio State and the Baylor because now it's like, okay, now it's the MAC. These are the games that count. Conrad, you were able to look at some of a future opponent, and one of them you saw was the UMass. So talked about what you saw in UMass. So maybe it's a little bit different than most people are going to think about. So give us your roundup on the UMass game.
Yeah, UMass worries me because of the way they played us last year. It looks like it's hard to say. I'd say it looks like a weaker team on paper, but they played pretty tough. They played Vanderbilt really tough a couple weeks back, and then they played another tough game against Bowling Green. So looking at that game, it was even at 0 for a while, and the UMass defense was able to hold Bowling Green to 5 straight punts to open the game. The game ended up breaking open because UMass punted on 8 of the first 9 drives. The 9th one ended at the half, and on the 10th drive, they threw an interception. So eventually, I think 5 of those were 3-and-outs, so their defense wore down. That worries me a little bit because I think part of what we're doing is we're running high on confidence. And, the Stony Brook game, I think if we would have rattled off 21 points quickly, we would have beat them 50-7 as well. But once you get stopped, you get punched in the face, how are we going to respond? So, I'm a little worried about UMass especially if we don't have the confidence still going really high. We have to, UMass defense looks like it's for real. Their offense is horrible, but how are we going to respond in another Stony Brook type game or later on in the season? So that's something to look to.
Thank you for breaking down UMass. Scares me, but thanks for bringing UMass. I can't fathom that. But there's going to be a day when UMass is going to, they're going to build a program. I just want that to be many years from now. And Tim, you looked at the WMU Toledo game. So obviously looking at Toledo, who we're looking at later, and WMU, who we're playing this week. Tell me, what is your feedback and what's your thoughts about the game last week?
I felt really good about this week's matchup, having watched that until I heard that they may be using their backup quarterback. What's his name? Terrell. He is, the critique we got from our guest blogger was very mobile, not a great passer. He had an insane passing ratio last week. I think he was 10 for 13 for 184 yards, and he went into the game late. Now he did throw a pick, but I think that adds a dimension to their offense that's not there. The area I think Buffalo's really going to be able to exploit them is they gave up 360 yards rushing to Toledo. Toledo's a very good rushing team. I think Fluellen put up 150 yards. This is a team that Oliver should be able to run on without too much trouble if he gets the smallest of cracks. They're not great tacklers once you get past that first line. And, we saw what Bo did to Eastern Michigan. He makes that first cut. If he gets any open field at all, he's a handful. On the other side, watching what Fluellen does kind of still scares me. I see Toledo as a team that just is stacked to run the ball, and Buffalo hasn't faced anyone like that, I don't think, all season that is that stacked to run. Baylor was throw. Ohio State was the mobile quarterback threat, but this will be the first game where we face someone who has a running threat probably like none other in the conference.
It'd be very interesting to see the next couple weeks that come up. I think we all feel pretty confident. We'll talk later about our predictions for this game, but I think that's going to be an interesting game against UMass. That's a game I think we all think that UB should win. Let's switch to this week's opponents. So obviously we've got another directional Michigan team. We've got Western Michigan, Tim. I'm going to start with you. So Tim, let's talk about what are you going to look for when you watch this game? Where do you think UB could do some damage, and what do you think that if UB struggles, where's it going to be? So, Tim, over to you, sir.
I'm thinking if UB struggles, it's going to be because the coaching staff gets it in their head to run the ball up the center of the line all game long, and we have seen them do that this season and in past seasons. If we run to the outside where we've been good runners all year, I don't think Oliver's going to have trouble topping 100 yards, and I think that will bring Western Michigan into the box. And one thing I really liked out of last week's game more than anything else individually was to see Dunmore get out there and make a circus catch, to see Fred Lee look like something of a receiving threat. So it's not like you can just stack the box and put your best defensive back on Alex News and say, okay, we've got this covered. Joe Licata is really starting to feel out the role of quarterback. He's starting to distribute the ball better. So I think offensively we should not have a lot of trouble moving the ball on them. Defensively, I just worry about how we'll handle an effective mobile quarterback, and I really do think Western Michigan's backup can be a lot more dangerous than people are giving him credit for.
Now, Tim, let me just kind of what you said. So you said that really UB needs to run outside of the tackles to be successful. But, I mean, watching Brandon the last number of years, Brandon really...
Wholly.
Okay.
No, I don't mean wholly. I don't mean sweeps or anything like that.
Okay.
But, his success running this year, if you watch game by game, his success is not going off the center, right? His success is getting out that next gap over, running, off tackle, running counters. I mean, his success has not been this season, let's just run at the middle of the line and punish them, because I don't think UB has the interior of the line to really do that right now. And I think it's a waste of Oliver's particular talent. I mean, Oliver's a great first-cut running back. Running at the middle of the line is not a great way to run him. If you run him just off tackle, you're great. I don't think he has the speed to be a guy who we're running around the outside. That's not what I meant by not up the middle.
Okay, thanks. The one thing that I've been very impressed with Licata and our players is that Licata's not throwing the ball in tight spaces. We're not turning the ball over. So one thing that I think one thing I know Conrad wants to talk about was, Conrad, I mean, the one thing that makes a huge difference when you look at the stat line is, the rushing, the passing might be similar, but when you're talking about sacks and turnovers, it's amazing how that really makes a big difference on a game. And that's one thing I know that you wanted to kind of spend some more time on.
Yeah, so when you look at the stats, WMU is the last in the conference in turnover margin. So they've gained 7 fumbles and they have 3 interceptions, but they've lost 4 fumbles and they have thrown 13 interceptions in 6 games. So they are a -7 in the turnover margin. So that's something that we can exploit since we have been very opportunistic this year, and the fact that WMU is going to be breaking in a new quarterback if Tub Thumpin isn't going to be able to play this week. So that I think that points to a good advantage for Buffalo. And you remember last year, the WMU game was the game that UB's defense exploded for 4 interceptions that helped us win that game at home. I think the other key is going to be running the ball. Brandon Oliver being back, no matter how he runs it, where he runs it, WMU is allowing 270 yards a game. So, I think this is the game where I fear the hashtag Quinn ball, that WMU is so bad against the run that we're going to spread it out and pass it 40 times a game. When you're a good team, you don't have to game plan that way. Unless there's something we can exploit with Newts, I would like to see us run the ball. We have Potts, we have Taylor if he's okay with team rules. We have Campbell, we have Oliver. We can run the ball 40 to 60 times if West Michigan can't stop it. Brown and Gold didn't seem to think that West Michigan could do anything to stop the run. And he feared that if they did load up to stop the run, Alex Newts is going to beat their secondary. It sounds like a winning recipe, and it really worked last week. So I just look for the same thing to happen this week.
Have we found out, is Taylor going to be back on the team? Is he going to be able to suit up? Do we have any idea what Taylor's status is? I don't care what happened. Obviously, they're taking care of it in-house. I just want to know if he's going to be able to play. Now, the one thing that I've been impressed with is I thought Taylor has looked much better than Potts. Thoughts on that?
I think some of that might have to do with who's handing the ball to Potts, or how many reps Potts is getting. I think a couple of the bad runs Potts had in the fourth quarter against Eastern Michigan, he and Zordich kind of tripped over each other. So it's hard to get a gauge on, who is. And Potts was also running against EMU's first defense with a lot of his own second string linemen. So, I don't know. At this point, I think there's not a lot of separation between anybody that comes after Bo. No one's really proven themselves one way or another. So, this is my long-winded way of saying I don't know.
I think they're different kind of backs. That's why I'm always a big proponent of the change of pace back. And despite many people thinking Potts and Bo are similar, I think they're very different. I think both Potts and Taylor are best at the stretch run, as Tim said earlier. Get them out, let them make that one decisive cut, and then get upfield. Taylor is probably good for 3 to 5 yards. Bo is usually good for more than that. And I think Potts, however, is a speed runner, inside, outside. He's been great on draw plays, on a counter run, anything that he gets a pulling guard in front of him. He can make one step. He doesn't have to cut and find the hole. He just hits the hole as fast as he can and goes straight ahead. I think that's been Potts' strength. So, I think when we didn't have Bo and we had a lot of our shotgun sets with Taylor, I think he didn't do too well in that. And I think when we put Potts back in those pistol sets where he has to find the hole, he doesn't do well in that. So I think they're both good backs, just situational.
Good. Well, the interesting thing is, if we all think how this game's going to go, I think we don't see Licata playing past the third quarter. Interesting, the news came out of Buffalo today was that Zordich was not practicing, and we're not sure if he's hurt or something happened. So there's a lot of us who thinks that it's time for, when the games like this happen, I don't understand why Zordich is still in the game. We know who he is as a passer. He's a great runner. It doesn't take a lot of time practice to play the option or the zone read. So it'll be interesting to see if the game goes as we think it is, who is going to be the second string quarterback. But so just a quick point there on backup quarterback. It's a college student who's working his butt off, going to school, but loves the football team. So we brought him on. We wanted to find more about the Broncos. So welcome. You got myself, David. You got Conrad. And we got Brandon here. So Conrad, why don't you kind of start with your first question? So we're gonna pepper Brandon with some questions about the Broncos and the game this weekend.
My first question is about Last week, David Llewellyn had a crazy day. 23 carries, 220 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Brandon Oliver. Last week, David Llewellyn had the big day, over 200 yards, 4 touchdowns, and only 23 carries. And this week, another top MAC back, Brandon Oliver, comes in. What can Western Michigan do to stop Brandon Oliver, or is he going to have a big day?
I mean, the only thing I could say he's going to do, or the Broncos could do, is stack the box, which then opens up the passing game, obviously, for Newts to just have another monster game like he did last year. 9 catches, 140 yards, and 1 touchdown against the Broncos. What people forget is Floan also had a career day against the Broncos last year in Western Michigan, in Tyler Van Tubbergen's first game as the starting quarterback for the Western Michigan Broncos. I just don't see the Broncos selling out against the run and giving up the pass. Oliver's going to find his holes against an inexperienced defensive line, and he'd probably go for 135 yards and a touchdown or two. It's just the Broncos haven't been able to stop the run, and when you have a nice mixed attack that Buffalo has, it's just tough to stop.
You have a lot of guys. This is one of Tim's questions. Who Tim will be here shortly. A lot of guys that are in the injury on the IR. Who are you missing the most? So what guy that's on the injured reserve do you really wish was on the field right now?
I think the obvious look is Jamie Wilson, and you see three wideouts that just pop off the name. You have Wilson, you have Daniel Braverman, who's a nice speedy wideout that also can do a couple running plays. And then you have Justin Collins, who's a big body, kind of like Corey Davis, only just more of a go-up-and-get-it guy. But with Wilson out, what the Broncos really are missing is a true slot guy, possession receiver, the Wes Welker type that they've been able to produce in Jordan White, a little bit of Juan Nunez before the time. That's what they always had in the Bill Cubitt offense. And what Wilson does is he does open up and he does draw attention. And Corey Davis just can't do that. He's not as fast. He's just more athletic. He's more of the Greg Jennings go up, kind of get it guy in college. So my obvious answer would be Wilson. On the defensive side, there's not too many injuries, to be honest. A couple linebackers that are out. One big one, I think, is Terry Eastman. But the linebackers are still pretty solid. You got Johnny Simon in there. You have Kyle Lark. Mike Jones. Mike Jones has been pretty solid, a transfer from Michigan. So the linebackers core isn't that bad off without him. It's just nice to have him. But defense is hurting, but not because of injuries.
I mean, that's a shame. Jamie Wilson didn't play last year against us, too, so he's MAC Freshman of the Year. We haven't been able to see him play. My next question is going to be another downer for WMU, but you've been outscored 51-3 in the first quarter this year. What's going on in that first quarter? Why is WMU having such a hard time getting the start of the game going?
I think the question was, it kind of cut in and out, the vast disparity at first quarter scoring. Am I correct?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I'll be honest, I didn't catch any of the Toledo game because I was a little bit busy with the college thing and because I knew what was going to happen in advance. But in the first quarters, I really don't know what's happening. You'd think that with PJ Fleck intensity, ha-ha, rah-rah, that they just come out strong, and I don't know what it is. Obviously, you play 3 Big Ten teams in Iowa, Michigan State, and Northwestern on the road, but their 3 points that they've gotten came against Northwestern, arguably the best team on their schedule this year. So it's just kind of confusing. Like, you can score 3 points against Northwestern, but you can't score any points against Nichols, against Kent State, against Toledo's defense, which has been suspect at times. I wish I could tell you what's going on, but I just can't. And it's really one of the perplexing things that you just look at and you go, wow, what is going on in the first quarter? Because the intensity should be there with PJ Fleck and just his go-get-'em attitude, but it's just not.
Do you see, so speaking of Fleck, do you see Fleck growing as a coach? And if you do, was it risky to pick somebody who's never really had a history, even as a coordinator? So tell me about Fleck, and look at his first season. There's going to be a huge learning curve. Tell me about what your thoughts are on him.
Oh, man. Fleck, he's different. I'll just say that. He's a ball of energy, and the Energizer Bunny if they made a human. He's something else. And I think he is starting to grow as a coach a little bit. He kind of pulled one of the oh man, why is it escaping me? If you've seen the movie Miracle, I just can't remember the coach's name off the top of my head. He pulled one of those and ran wind sprints earlier this week to try to get the team in better condition, try to pull the team out of a funk. But I think he is growing just kind of more slowly than we expect. And the results just kind of aren't there because you do have 4 top quality teams and then a Kent State team that just got Dre Archer back, and then of course the Nichols disaster, but we'll ignore that. But coming into the season, it was something that you could kind of see because Fleck is young. Fleck doesn't have coordinator experience. But I think Western Michigan didn't really have a choice because after you fire Bill Cubitt, who does have a winning record, who does go to 3 bowl games, who actually went to a bowl game the very next season, goes 4-8 with his starting quarterback out and gets fired. I think that kind of was contributed to a couple of his decisions. Never being able to truly get over the hump with the highest finish of 2nd in the MAC West. That's kind of scares coaches where you think job security is not a good thing. Plus, Western Michigan isn't one of the better paying jobs or even one of the better jobs outside of on the field to coach in the MAC, let alone in the country. So when you have a smaller talent pool to try to pick from, you get PJ Fleck as a head football coach in the D1 level.
Boy, the person that you were thinking, Herb Brooks, the coach of the Miracle. So that's the name you're looking for. And we actually had a great question from our Twitter feed. So Matt came with, he says, hey, saw a tweet that TVT had his arm in a sling. What's his injury status? What's Western's backup quarterback situation? So if you can kind of give us some insight of who do you think is going to start at QB, and if it's the backup, tell me about the backup quarterback.
I haven't seen anything on TVT. I haven't been paying too much attention. Obviously, I've had kind of other things that have occupied my time right now in the middle of October and midterms. But I did happen to catch, looking through some things today, I did happen to catch that tweet. I did look into it a little bit, and he is listed as questionable for this weekend. Whether he plays or not, that will ultimately be up to Fleck. But at this point in the season, you're 0-6, nothing's really happening. I think Western Michigan at some point has to start looking towards the future. TVT's a senior. He's not going to be there next year. No matter what happens the rest of the way, he's not pro material, and I think we're seeing that this season. And I think this is the same thing I was saying last year with Alex Carter kind of struggling. And then when Alex Carter goes out, it's time to put TVT in, start planning for the future. It's time to put in Zach Terrell, get some game experience, and really open up that quarterback battle for next season. And Zach Terrell is the first man up if Tyler can't play. What he brings to the table is he's a little bit more agile and mobile, but he doesn't have quite the arm. However, when we saw him play in the Michigan State game, he did look all right. He didn't look great, but it's Michigan State who has the number 1 total defense yard-wise in the nation. take that for what you will. Of course, he comes in on the Iowa game, first play of the second half. When he plays, he throws a pick six. So it's kind of a kick push. He is a redshirt freshman. But if he plays, I don't think much is going to change. I think you'll see Western Michigan be able to move the ball a little bit more on the ground, open up the passing game a little bit by rolling out the pocket. But it just won't make that much of a difference, to be honest. But it'll help plan for the future. It'll help open up that quarterback battle between him, Cam Thomas, who's currently a redshirted, and as a freshman, the Rivals guys who I talk to often, they have a really high upside for him. And Chance Stewart is a four-star commit right now, who has been, really rah-rah on Western since he recommitted, or since he committed to Western from decommitting from Wisconsin. Obviously, we'll see if he still holds. Tim Cason just left, so it's 0-6, but still plenty of time left.
Well, let's do three more things here. So obviously, the first thing we want to say is please do not let your head coach dance ever again. He looks like a guy who was jogging and had a massive seizure stroke. It was the worst thing I've ever seen. Second of all, Brandon, we'd like to get that's terrible. And Brandon, we'd also like to get your prediction of the game. And then the last thing we want to get from you is what questions do you have from a Broncos perspective on the Bulls? So, one, your prediction of the game, and two, what do you have? What can we answer for you? What do you need perspective on?
First, I'm going to say, well done. I mean, you actually sat through that video and watched it, because that was a tough week. That video came out the same week as the Nicholls State game, and that was a tough week. So my prediction, like I said earlier, I really think Brandon Oliver, maybe Devin Campbell if he gets to play, they open up the run game. And when Western tries to sell it against the run like they did against Nicholls, like they've done pretty much the entire season, then you'll see Buffalo just fade back and throw. And Newt's, I think, will finish with 50 in receiving and 2 touchdowns. Oliver, I said, gets 130 and a touchdown. I think Campbell gets close to 100 and a touchdown. Ultimately, Western gets some garbage time touchdowns to make it look manageable, but Buffalo, 48-27 over my Broncos.
I appreciate your honesty. That's not a fun thing, and it's been many years where we've had to pick other teams. Any questions?
Yeah.
Any questions that you have? Anything that you want perspective on from the UB side of the ball?
Yes. Let me pull up my question so I'm not repeating myself too much.
And Tim, because welcome, Tim. Tim, you're going to answer the first question.
All right.
Wow, I can't find mine. All right. Wait, hang on. Okay. Never mind.
That's okay.
So,
well, listen, I've got your questions. I'll answer them for you so you can put it up there. But anything, give us one question. What's your?
Well, I got a couple now that I'm thinking
Sure.
about them. So, obviously, Khalil Mack's a monster. I saw the Ohio State game. He just terrorized a very good quarterback, very good mobile quarterback in Braxton Miller. I mean, what else can this man do? And who else on the defensive side should Bronco fans just be wary of?
Well, Matt can do everything except he's not an exceptional guy in coverage. Great pursuit. Once in a while, will run a play. Very good tackler. He's not just quarterbacks need to be afraid of him. It's anybody in the backfield. What's made Buffalo's defense more dangerous the past couple weeks, and in fact, all season long, but what's really become more visible is Adam Redden on the other side, who was a converted safety to linebacker this season, and he has himself been somewhat of a havoc wreaker in backfields and has forced teams to not pretend Khalil Mack is the only guy on defense. So it's a nice compliment on the other side of the defense. He's over there with Colby Way, who is a pretty heady defensive end who knows how to get his hands up, knows how to, if he can't get to the quarterback, he can make himself enough of a nuisance to ruin a quarterback's throwing motion more often than not. So those are two other big names. In the defensive backfield has started to play better of late, I think, because of the defensive pressure that UB's front 6 or 7 is bringing. You were seeing the defensive backs being far more effective. So Najee Johnson is starting to step up big. Brim has looked pretty good of late. I'm impressed with the breadth of players we're seeing on the defense versus what we saw in the first couple weeks.
All right. My next question, for anyone really, is here in the state of Michigan, at least for the directional Michigans, you see Fire Enos often. Fire English. English is pretty much gone, and it seems like it's an afterthought in Yipsy. You hear Fire Flex sentiments here now in Kalamazoo, but you also have Bill Cubitt, who was just fired last season after a 4-8 campaign, which obviously you guys have been endured a little bit worse in recent years. So Jeff seemed to have done just enough to save his job. He actually gets an extension last year. What do you guys think about him? I mean, what's the sentiments in Buffalo about this guy that does just enough to keep his job?
I'm just going to say real quick, and I'll pass this on to Conrad. I'm Mr. Negative when it comes to coaching. We've actually had 3 wins in a row, so I'm just going to shut my pie hole and let someone else talk right now. So this is where I be quiet.
The extension was not well received. He did just enough, and by that it was 25% win percentage, with half of those wins being FCS teams. So the very bare minimum of just enough to keep your job and get it extended for another 4 years. It helps right now. The timing of the extension was really bad. It was actually, we got blown out by Baylor, and we just got by Stony Brook in 5 overtimes. So there was a lot of flames there, but now that you're winning a couple games in a row, it's better. I think a lot of the fan base is happy right now. It's been 5 years. It's been 4 years since we've had a successful season. 5 years since we won the MAC. So having this kind of success, it kind of heals all wounds. Are we good enough to compete for the East? I think and some fans are more on that side. So we're looking for basically winning against WMU, winning against UMass, winning against Miami. You got to beat the teams that you should beat to get to that 6 and 6 level, get to a bowl game. And we're a team that's never won a bowl game. So if we got to 6 and 6 and won a bowl game, Jeff Quinn might be one of the best coaches in history. And next year is going to be bad. All our talent is going to be gone next year. So, his goodwill. Go ahead.
No, after you, Connor. Go ahead, Connor.
Oh,
that was just
he's built up a lot of goodwill, but he's beaten UMass, WMU last year, Miami. This year it's EMU, Stony Brook. So we haven't really beaten good talent, but we're so starved for wins that I think right now he's very safe.
The one thing that strikes me is I got here late because something came up at work. Was your description of Fleck sounded a lot like Jeff Quinn during a year which I'm not supposed to mention on this podcast by Dave Law. When Quinn first got to Buffalo, very loud, very braggadocious. Everyone talked about his energy and the on the product field was terrible. And I was reading something over on CNSBB's on the Broncos board over there just earlier tonight, where Fleck is talking during his weekly press conference about how he feels like he's doing 100% good job right now, and that's kind of the guy Quinn was, where it was all we heard in 2000 and the year after 9 was, we're getting there, we're doing the little things. It's a process, and beware that, because some processes stretch out a long way. I think the games which will tell us whether or not Quinn is really something will be the Kent, the Toledo, the Ohio games this year. I think Buffalo and Eastern Michigan suffer bad coaches a lot longer than you look at Miami just fired Treadwell after 2.5 years. You already have Western Michigan calling for Fleck's head, the fan base there. I just think some schools perform poorly in the MAC because they suffer coaches who don't do a good job until their contracts are almost over, or extend them in our case.
Yeah, I think to go on to Tim's point, the year that we don't mention was a year I think we went almost 10 or 11 games before we scored in the first quarter, and we would never score in the fourth quarter. And that's something I see in Western Michigan. They're not starting fast and they're not finishing, and we have done a lot better than that. But I always question. I think sometimes we win in spite of our coaching. We have great talent. I'm not sure if our coaching is there yet. But I will say that Stan Parrish made it a lot harder to keep a coach because he did nothing good at Ball State, and as soon as he was gone, the team turned around. So it's hard to sit and watch your team go 4-8, 3-9, and wonder if the next great guy is sitting somewhere else.
And Brandon, let's do this. We want to keep this moving. So Brandon, while you're sitting there, we're gonna get you on this. So Brandon, get up, do the row your boat dance. Come on. At the start of the fourth quarter, do your row the boat dance. Come on, get up and do the dance. Come on, you have DJ Ill. He's not in the house tonight, but come on, do the dance. I'm gonna take that as a no.
I'm gonna lose a lot of respect. For
I won't stand up.
Put that.
I actually have one more question. So obviously you guys are 3-2 right now. You went on the road to Ohio State, lost that game in the close-ish game, 40-20. Then you go on the road to Baylor, who has steamrolled everyone, 780 yards of offense a game, which is just astronomically insane. And then the Stony Brook, near disaster, but you crush Eastern Michigan. You crush
UConn.
You miss?
UConn.
Either way, you won convincingly. You now have 3 winnable games to get to 6-6. Do you see Buffalo making a bowl game this year under Quinn? Do you see them getting, reaching that plateau a little bit, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So it's been a long time. We've only had one bowl game in our history. If you would have asked me 2 weeks ago if UB was going to be in a bowl game, I would have said no. But again, Buffalo has got a guarded heart. So should we, with the talent we have? Absolutely. Conrad said something that's I think is the perfect. We win despite the coaching. Talent trumps coaching sometimes. Should we win the next 3 games? Absolutely. Should we get to a bowl game? Well, we've seen a Temple team that's 7 or 8 wins not make it. So it's not guaranteed that we're going to make 6, or if we get to 6 or 7, we're going to make it. But this team, with the talent they have, should make it. So I think a lot of people, time heals old wounds. If you would ask me after the Baylor game and after the Stony Brook game, I would have told you we're not going to win another game the rest of the season. Now we're in a different spot after UConn and EMU. I think that Buffalo has a nice run. Right now, the prediction by the people lots smarter than me, theoretically, is that we're going to make it to the Pinstripe Bowl in New York City, which I think against Rutgers, which I think would be a great game for UB to go to.
That's what I was thinking right when after I'd said bowl game, I was thinking Pinstripe Bowl in Yankee Stadium would be pretty much ideal for every UB fan out there. Just like the Pizza Bowl was for us. Obviously, we'll need a massive turnaround, including a win at NIU, to make a bowl game this year, and that starts with a win against Buffalo. But
next year you can settle for the Bahamas.
Oh yeah,
there you go.
That's always something to look forward to.
Well, good. Hey, Brandon, thank you very much for your time. Look tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. You'll see a question and answer with Brandon and myself. We'll be doing 5 questions on the Bulls, 5 questions on WMU. Brandon, sorry about the ass kicking or 6 questions. Sorry about the ass kicking that Buffalo's going to put on your team this weekend. I apologize but you're a young kid. You're still in college. You got many years of suffering like us. But listen, thank you very much. Thanks for staying up. Like not EMU, so I've lost all respect for them. So thanks for staying up. And hey, Brandon, have a great night. Enjoy the game. Listen, you've got a couple more years. You'll be fine. Just stay away from the hard booze. Just stay away from. Stick to beer.
I'm a Cubs fan, so I'm used to this.
Good for you. Listen, I wouldn't admit that, but good for you. But Brandon, thanks. Have a great night. Thank you very much.
Thank you, you too.
Great. Have a good night. Okay. So we talked about the keys of the game. Now it's time for us to tell you who is going to win this game, how they're going to win this game and how the score is going to come down. So, Tim, I'm going to come to you first, so I'm going to let you cue up your stats. Tim, give me your prediction for the game, and how do the scores happen?
All right. Last week I picked a close game and we blew them out, so I'm going that way again. There's a couple reasons to worry. Western Michigan, they do have a lot of talent. They're pretty banged up, but this is their homecoming. They're going to be wearing their throwback to 1966 championship helmets. They're really trying to amp up the team and the crowd. I'm going to predict 24-21 again. It's not going to be an overtime game this time, as was my prediction last time. The score that puts UB ahead for good will be a Mason Schreck to Devin Campbell throw, and following that will follow a Khalil Mack strip close into the red zone. Western Michigan will roll down the field in the fourth quarter to bring it back to within 3, but that's all it's going to be from there.
I like your pick. Very superstitious like me. I like that, Tim. Conrad, where do you see this game? What's the final score, and how does that final score happen?
I'm going to pick a closer game. I think I called the blowout. I worry about us on the road. We've won 5 straight at home, and we've won 6 of our last 9. That one road win was UMass, and that was a struggle. So I worry about us on the road. So I'm picking a 31-17 victory. I don't think it's going to be I think it's going to be frustrating, just like last year's game, where we probably should have blown WMU out last year, and we let them hang into the game. I'm seeing a 31-17 from us. I'm seeing another quick Oliver touchdown, and then as a result of that, a quick play-action Newt's touchdown. So a quick 14-point lead. I think we throw a field goal up there at the half, and WMU gets a touchdown run from their quarterback. So we'll have a 17-7 halftime lead. We'll come back with a touchdown, another one for Oliver. Make it 21-7. I think WMU is going to put up a quick 10, 21-17 or 24-17. So the game will actually come down to the end. And I'm giving Derek Brim an interception return for a touchdown. He doesn't have one, I think, in his career. And Whitney Sherry got one. Courtney Lester has one. Najee Johnson has one. So it's time for Brim to get his. So a big score for the Buffalo native this week.
You two are the biggest wimps I've ever met in my life. This game is a blowout. It's not even be close. Listen, Western Michigan is where UB was 2 years ago or 3 years ago. This game is 42-10, going away. I've got Bo with 2 touchdowns. I've got the tight ends, whoever you want, with 2 touchdowns. I got Potts scoring a late TD, and I even got Fred Lee. Now, I'm not going to pick Nukes because I'm a superstitious guy, and every time I pick him not to score a touchdown, the guy just scores another freaking touchdown, which is great. So I got 42-10, and I'm telling you, they don't score a late touchdown until halfway through the fourth quarter. So it's going to be big score. So this is a blowout. Now, again, I'm a jackass, and if UB doesn't blow this game out well, I'm going to be complaining Monday morning. But UB is going to blow this team out. So 42-10. Tim's got a close game. No really reason why he's picking 24-21 other than he picked it last week. So I like where his head's at. Conrad, you got 31-17. Interesting. So that's where we are with this game. But the nice thing is Bruwpeg was started because we want to know how our team's going to do. This is nice that we have another week where everyone is picking Buffalo so far. We still have a number of pickers to come in. So that is our prediction of the game. We're going to end it tonight, so we've been on about 52 minutes now. So the last thing we're going to do is we're going to do our shout-outs. So what do we want to talk about? What's our thoughts? What do we want to get off our chest? What are we excited about? What are we nervous about? Anybody want to go first? I'm going to throw this out. Anybody want to grab the mic and get dumb? Anybody? Conrad.
Okay. So Dave is drinking the blue UV Kool-Aid. Obviously, his tongue is not blue, so he definitely hit it before the broadcast. But a lot of people are lately, and I don't know if it's the concerts, which I thought were a bad idea, or not a bad, but at least a dumb idea. But now I think it's a really good idea. You think of some cities in the South that when the game is played there, it becomes the biggest city in the state. we're never going to get 20 million people to come to Buffalo for a football game, so it can eclipse New York City. But we can still have that atmosphere where you're coming to Buffalo for a major concert event, a football game, a tailgate, and it is a huge event in the state of New York. Um, and the attendance numbers, Tim was very big on them after the first week and very big on the second week, and I said, it's UConn and Stony Brook. We've done that before. Let's see what happens later. And now we have our third game, and we have great attendance. So the first game against Stony Brook was the number 4 largest attended game in UB history, home game, and the third largest at UB Stadium. Then we dipped at the UConn game after the poor showing at Stony Brook, but that was still the 12th largest crowd in UB Stadium history. Last week, attendance went back up, 23,602 people reported, the 5th largest home crowd in UB history, and the number 4 largest crowd at UB Stadium ever. So this year, 3 games in the top 12 of all-time UB Stadium attendance. So and it looks like a lot of fun. I wish I could get back to Buffalo and see the atmosphere. And I hope they keep it up, especially during the cold November weekday nights of Maction. So good job, everyone drinking the blue Kool-Aid, and keep it up.
I tell you what, last sugar tastes pretty good. Hey, Tim, your thoughts?
My shout out's going to go to PJ Fleck for bringing the Mid-American Conference a human meme machine. We've sorely needed such a personality in the conference who can simultaneously put a very bad product on the field and claim utter success. It's nice that we're no longer the only program that's ever done that. But in all seriousness, the Western Michigan fans I've talked with this week, I've chatted with, they've been amazing. They've been, what you would expect out of a healthy fan. They are both derisive of Buffalo and themselves at the same time for what they're going through, and I think that it's been a lot of fun. This has been the most fun I've had online with an opponent's fans this week more than any other week, and I think it speaks pretty highly of the folks over Western Michigan. Good, thanks, Tim. Well, it's been a fun run. I think we all expect another 2, 3, 4 weeks of wins. It's a great time to be a UB fan. So everybody, that's it for Les Bull Run. So we've been on here for 55 minutes. We thank everybody. Thanks for actually the people. I've been getting tweets, so I've been watching the tweet board. We've actually been getting tweets for people who they love the kid. They love the kid from WMU. They love his pick. So we're getting some great tweets from everybody out there who's watching the program. So for Conrad, for Tim, for me, we would just want to thank everybody. Enjoy the game this weekend. Enjoy the run that we're going on. We'll talk about next year much later. Hey, halfway through the season, let's win this game. Let's put ourselves in a great position. Conrad, have a great night. Tim, have a great night. Guys, Bull out. We are very lucky this week to have a guest blogger to take some of our questions.
last week, our guest blogger for EMU fell asleep. So we're one step ahead of where we're at. So, hey, I'd like to welcome from Brown and Gold